Hello and welcome everyone to the 34th official episode of Eunuch Corner Club Live. This week we are joined by someone who I don't know very well yet, but I like the cut of her jib and the things that she's interested in. So Mack and Liberty is going to be my one-on-one guest for this week. Now this week I need to do some housekeeping. This stream is not broadcasting to YouTube because I got a channel strike. So you're only hearing this on Entropy, Trovo, and DLive. Unfortunately, I couldn't figure out how to put Odyssey live stream into my Restream multi-feed yet. So soon that will be an option, but it's not for this week. Most of you, because we only have about 10 people listening right now, most of you are probably missing this live because you don't know that I am not able to stream on YouTube. This is why follow me on Gab, Minds, Telegram. Follow me over on DLive and Trovo and Odyssey and Entropy, because then you won't miss out on my content when evil old Susan WikiWiki decides to put the banhammer on me. So that being said, today's stream and Discordant Dragons this coming Monday night are not going to be on YouTube, or they're not going to live stream to YouTube. Whenever my channel on YouTube is able to be accessed again, I will be uploading both the stream today with Mack and Discordant Dragons this coming Monday night will be going up on my channel. That'll be after next Thursday when the strike ban is lifted. Now, enough with the housekeeping. For the few of you listening, you already know that the way that you interact with this stream is via Entropy, or you wouldn't be here at all because YouTube, like I said, is a no-go today. That being said, thank you to the handful of you that are here to listen to this live. And without further ado, I'm going to bring on Mack of Mack and Liberty. Hello, Mack. Thank you for joining me today. How are you today?
Hello, I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, you're very welcome, and I'm glad that you're here. Mack is someone who I met recently in the last couple of months via the stream circuit. I heard her speak on a couple of places. I know that one of them was hearing her on Academic Agent's channel. Someone that I know loosely, but who she knows is Emo Hoppian. And Emo Hoppian was excited for us to have a chat. So we know some of the same people, and I am also from the libertarian ANCAP variety of people, being a hillbilly, being from the stay off my bottom land type of folks who never liked the government, never liked the banks anyway. I have natural sympathies to a lot of the Mises camp and ANCAP Hoppian stuff. So thank you for being here today, Mack. Before we get started, can you take a few minutes just to let my viewers and myself know some basics about you, why you exist, why you have a channel, and the general impetus behind what makes you do what you do?
Sure. So I'm obviously of the ANCAP variety. I came that way by way of centrism, as the way to put it nicely, though I think culturally I was probably leftist just because that's what most people are. I didn't care about politics at all. I thought it was stupid, so I guess I already had that going for me. But I got involved with the quote-unquote liberty movement in around 2015. I joined a group called Young Americans for Liberty, if anyone's familiar with them. They started out of a Students for Ron Paul type thing. And when I joined, I didn't even know who Ron Paul was. So people are always a little bit shocked at that, but that's how.
Well, you're also pretty young, right? Like you've only been out of high school less than a decade, right?
Yes, less than a decade. Yeah.
So you're in your late 20s now, I take it?
Yeah, I'm 27 right now.
Cool.
So yeah.
What a beautiful age that is. Speaking of being beautiful, you are a beautiful ginger, and you do cosplay. So I'm sure that a lot of followers appreciate your good looks and your very good cosplay.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I also, around the same time, as weird as it is, that I got into libertarianism, I also got into cosplaying, mostly anime characters, though I've done some comic stuff, but mostly of the Japanese variety. But I do that too, and I think that weird blend of two things together that's really doesn't make any sense when you think about it, led me to gain a following on Twitter until I got banned this past February. But
Indeed you did.
Yeah, I've been commenting on politics and cultural stuff since then. So that's basically how I got the following that I have now.
Well, that's a good introduction to start with. So we're going to segue into a short 1-minute video that you put up on your channel called Surprise, when you got banned. You made this little video, and we're going to show it to everyone today, and then we'll keep talking about you. So here we go. Very good. Very good. Clearly, you have decent audio video editing skills to put something like that together. I would say that we are probably in the same ballpark of we can just barely get it done.
Yeah.
I don't come from an AV background, so I've just sort of had to fumble around with everything and listen to what other people do and try to do it myself. But you seem to at least have comparable skills, if not better than me, so I appreciate that. When you put that together, that video that said surprise, and you chose to put the things in there you did about cosplay, political commentary, that kind of thing, that was because this video was made just a couple of months ago after you lost your rather impressive 27,000 follower Twitter account. Will you tell me what it was like trying to transition your followers from Twitter to another platform? Because I have real trouble with that, like I mentioned at the first of the stream.
Yeah, it was a big change. And obviously, for years, my followers were telling me, what you talk about, you're gonna get the axe, you need to move to other platforms. But for me, Twitter was the only place. The real issue is Twitter was the only place where I posted my cosplay and just talked about whatever the heck I wanted. On my YouTube, I always just kind of did joke streams and would talk about politics. And then I have my cosplay Facebook page like y'all saw in the video. Mm-hmm. But my Twitter was always both. So when I got banned, people basically had no idea where to go. I mean, they knew that I had a YouTube channel, but my YouTube channel has nowhere near the following that my Twitter did. And I have a Liberty Facebook page, but that has around 6,000, which I mean is nothing to sneeze at. But
that's not bad. That's still something nice. I mean,
yeah. So I ended up making the website, and people emailed me, where can I find you? So now I just direct everyone to the website unless they're going to look at my YouTube channel where I do live content. But it was a struggle. I had a bunch of people email me that I knew they know that I have a cosplay page, but if you follow me for political commentary, you don't really always want to look at that. So I think the struggle for me was my content was so split everywhere but Twitter that people didn't know where to follow me. And they're like, well, I don't really want to follow 4 different pages to get a hold of you. So now I'm just blending everything. I say, listen, I'm already banned on Twitter for my opinions, so I might as well just get out there and put it all together like I've always wanted to do everywhere and on all my platforms.
Yeah, I'm doing what I can to get all of my followers invested in Odyssey right now, because Odyssey's based on LBRY library. And I already have my entire catalog of work transferred over to Odyssey. And Odyssey so far seems to be pretty good about not banning people and all of that. But like every one of these platforms, in their user license agreement, they can ban you for whatever. They can uphold laws of the land, so they can ban you for hate speech or whatever. But that's every hosting service. So far though, from what I hear, they're pretty good about it. All the nationalists, all the ethnats, all the ANCAP people, all the race realist folks, they seem to not be getting banned or censored over on Odyssey. And if they're not getting banned and censored, that's usually a pretty good sign that they're not censoring people. So so Odyssey seems to be a good place. Do you have an Odyssey that you'd like people to join?
I created an account, and I am planning on starting to catalog probably not my live streams, but any videos that I upload over there. But I still have to transfer my videos. But when I do that,
do it for you. All you have to do is go over there and tell them to start, and in about 1 week, they have it all transferred over there for you, and you don't have to lift a finger. They just do it.
Okay, yeah. I've also heard that the people that run it are Mises people, so that makes me happy too. Mm-hmm. So
yep, I have also heard that, and that makes me happy. So speaking of Mises, why don't you tell me? You say you do a lot of political commentary. We likely will have lots of sympathies because I know the things that you've talked about, like especially with Academic Agent. I listened to what you had to say. So I know that we agree on a lot of the basics. But when it comes to living in America, and I know you live in, we'll leave it simple and say Central Time Zone. I know that you live in Central Time Zone America. When it comes to activism, getting engaged, talking to the people around you in your community or your rural area or city, wherever you are. Tell me some about what you do in person, if you do anything at all. Do you engage in any type of activism or community building or anything where you live?
Well, I'm actually very excited because when I joined this movement, so to speak, I was part of an organization where I actually traveled around basically throughout the Midwest, and I talked to college students and did events and all that. And I really loved that part of it. I didn't want to be just an online talking head. I wanted to actually talk to people in person because, in my opinion, that's where it matters. Somebody could tell you they agree with you online, but if you don't talk to them in person, you don't know. They could be lying. You don't know. So
and also online is important for networking and for building ideas and knowing you're not alone, but we need the rubber to meet the road. That's why I've gotten involved in the last year with American patriots, with the MAGA movement, with people who care about, preserving the white race, with people who care about cultural history protection, people who care about the Constitution. I've gotten involved with a lot of people who actually do things on the ground and try to build community, because I feel like that's what all of us that are content creators, if we can, we need to be involved with those folks, because we need to start building strong communities that raise healthy children away from the lies of the establishment. And we need to start building things that will be not only our safeguard for ourselves, but building protected communities and pathways for our children to grow apart from this ugly global homo establishment stuff. So in your local community, do you have like a group that you work with to maybe have a food co-op or to have local protection for moving private goods and things like that? Do you do any of that kind of libertarian ANCAP stuff around your area?
Well, my project right now, so I had a bit of a conflict of interest with the job that I had. I won't say what I did, but
Sure.
It was kind of hard for me to be actively political in my local area and have the job that I had. But in January, my job let me know that my position was being eliminated thanks to the COOF. And so as of this month, I finally phased myself out and just said, okay, I'm not going to stay till the end of the year. I'm just going to quit my job and move to the next phase of my life. And I have things I want to do anyway. And so this is going to sound ridiculous because I'm an ANCAP, and the joke with ANCAPs is we don't like roads. But my current project is our local government, for whatever reason, has been putting in these terrible one-way outer roads to where they tear out the roads that go both ways, and you have to go down 3 or 4 exits to cross the highway. It's very annoying. And the businesses that are local that have already been dying because of what's been going on over the past year and a half when they were forced to shut down are worried that now they finally get to open back up, and now the road is one way and people aren't going to be able to get to their businesses. So there's this project that people have locally that's basically protesting this thing. The government has obviously decided we're going to do this and we're going to send a survey out about it, but we're just going to do it. We're just going to send out a survey so we can say we sent one out. It's very obvious what they're doing. So my project right now is to work with those people in local businesses and to try to get the government to understand you're going to destroy the businesses you already destroyed with your other decisions. You don't need to do this. It's inconvenient. It doesn't make any sense. So my husband's been making fun of me because he said, "Are you serious? Your first project is about roads?" But it is. And it's something that local people, it might not be directly related to anarcho-capitalism per se, but it's something local people right now are passionate about and they're voicing their opinions about. So I figure if I can work with people and do that and them get to know me and kind of know what I think about these things and caring about local businesses, then that could be my in to actually start to interact with people and network in my local area too.
Yeah. Since it came up, the joke about roads, to those of you listening who are not up to speed on anarcho-capitalism and what people, especially the Hoppian variety, want, it's not that we want total anarchy like Mad Max or the rich people just controlling everything. Anarcho-capitalism means you want the market to determine the best forms of trade, governance, control of each different segment of the human market. And the human market is everything from law enforcement to judicial practices to energy production, all of the things that the government basically has monopoly on. We don't like that monopoly, and we think it would be better suited for a more meritocratic, natural human flow to take back those things from these ugly states that govern everything. That's basically the end goal of anarcho-capitalism, is to slowly whittle the state away until the point to where you don't need it, and healthier, better systems have replaced the older, ugly systems. Is that a good summary that you would agree to?
Yeah, exactly. Yep, that's exactly it.
So when you hear me say, I'm an ANCAP at heart, I don't want you guys listening to think that means that I don't think there should be any rule of law, or I just want anarchy. That's not at all what anarcho-capitalism is about. It's about moving away from these ugly military states that have basically destroyed business, trade, and our way of life for the last 100 years, and work towards something better that's more human and more natural when it comes to how things are done, who trades with who gets to move where, that kind of thing. So me being who I am, being, like I joke about a lot on my channel, being a hillbilly, the whole Mises, Hoppe stuff, ANCAP stuff, it really jibes with who I am, because I like people in their area taking care of their own, looking after their own, being invested in local business and enterprise, having a local sheriff, turning to your own church and your own community and your own people for what the government would normally provide, which is like school and law enforcement and that kind of thing. So the Mises Hoppian concepts really fit me naturally. So that's why I'm very sympathetic to the libertarian ANCAP variety of people. So with that being said, let's talk about what kind of people you is. Now, before we do that, though, we're going to show the second little video of yours that I wanted to share today. It's about 30 seconds, so it's cute. But the reason is it shows your face, and you have a lovely face and a lovely smile, and I know that my viewers will appreciate you. So I'm going to share this cute little short video of yours where they get to see your face. So here it goes.
Today, the director of the CDC said, Oh, really? That's really cool. I only have one response to that, though.
Oh, it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
That's so funny. I sent that to my husband, and he said, I thought you were just going to be talking for 30 seconds, and the meme at the end really caught me off guard, because he thought I was about to go on a rant about it, and I just put in the clip instead.
So to those of you watching, this is what Mack looks like. As you can see, she's adorable. She's a ginger, and I just wanted to share that with everybody, because I like people to know what the people I bring on look like. On my channel, of course, since we have hillbilly internet, we usually don't do cam because, well, it takes up precious bandwidth we need for other things. But speaking of you and what you look like, I'm assuming you are from America. You were born here, right?
Yes.
And are you of like just regular American stock of like the usual European folks, or do you have unique or extra national folks in your immediate family?
No, I don't. And I'm actually, it's so funny talking. I know you talk about ancestry a lot, and that's something I've really come to appreciate. It's always been so weird for me because I'm actually adopted. I was adopted at birth. I know, obviously, look at me. I'm of European ancestry. I know that.
Yeah.
But I don't know my exact makeup.
And from your traits, probably Irish and Scottish, if I had to guess.
My eye doctor once told me that my eyeballs tell him that I'm Scottish, so I guess that. I don't know. But
a lot of my ancestors are Scottish too. Some of them Irish, but most of them Scottish, I've been told.
I hate saying my adoptive family, but my adoptive family is they're all German. So
oh, cool. I like Germans, especially the ones that I've known personally. They seem pretty cool.
So my maiden name is very, very German, but obviously I know I'm of European ancestry, but I'm from the Midwest, born in the Midwest, and I had friends growing up who constantly said things like, I want to get out of this. I don't know why they call it a small town. I actually live fairly close to a city, but I want to get out of this small town. I hate the Midwest. There's nothing to do here. And I am very blessed that I never understood that attitude. And I love it here. And I put down roots here. My husband's from here as well. And
you two don't have children yet. You two don't have children yet, right? Just your dog?
Not yet. Hopefully soon. But no children yet. But all of my family's here. And I just plan to stay here. And I have no desire to go to a big city and live the apartment squish life. I just really don't.
Oh, I don't blame you. I don't blame you. I've traveled a lot. Like I've done a lot of different jobs. I've done nursing, and a lot of what I've done is professional driving. So I've gone to half the states in America. I've spent about 10 years of my life living in big cities, and I appreciate now that I'm older, because I'm in my 40s now. I'm older than I look, but I appreciate that I grew up in a backwards area in Appalachia, in the Appalachian Mountains, where when I grew up, it might as well have been 1920 or 1910. And the reason I say I appreciate that is going to big cities, like especially in the Southwest where I lived for a while between Phoenix and Albuquerque, it seems that in big cities, almost every tether to stability and our cultural history has been severed in these big cities. People don't have family ties. They don't have land. They don't have immediate cultural history. Like here, I'm only about 20 miles from where I was born here. And the people around here, there are farmhouses and farmlands and caves and cornfields and stuff that are still in the same families that owned them at the turn of the 1900s. So I think that big cities eliminate that. And that's why you see, like when you look at the map, and I know that we don't really care about left versus right politics because it's all establishment crap. But when you look at what makes the difference between Democrat and Republican voters, it's pretty obvious that the socialist, progressive, Marxist variety of politician appeals to people that don't have cultural history, that don't appreciate the things that you and I do, because only these big cities are where all these voters are. Like when you look at the map, it's almost entirely red, and in America, that's Republicans. For those of you who aren't American, I know that that's odd to think that red's not the common color. I get that. But it's almost all red except for like the 20 major cities, and they're all blue. And that's it. Like it's really, and I started noticing that about 8 or 9 years ago, what a dramatic difference it was. And then once the crazy anti-white people, the ones that, they call themselves woke and feminists and LGBT and all this and that, these anti-Western, anti-white radicals, they started taking over everything. They took over the hospital corporation group that I worked under. They started taking over the university sector. They started taking over everything in the city I lived in. And then I realized it was that way in every city. And so just being the, right-wing libertarian, whatever the hell I am, speaking the truth about, capitalism and A, B, C, D, and E, almost immediately within the span of a year during Obama's second term, I went from being a normal person that people liked to being a far-right radical white supremacist that nobody wanted to hire or talk to, even though I didn't change. It was just everything else around the environment changed in the city I was living in. It was crazy. It was wild to experience that. Have you experienced anything like that with the shift of these radicals taking over media and school and everything? Have you experienced any of that yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. And the weirdest experience that I have ever had, because I used to be, I would call myself a lolbert, as they say, somebody who says they're libertarian, but I hadn't really read any theory or any books or anything like that. I just thought it was kind of cool until I was on a college campus in the rural area of where I live. I live in the suburbs, but I was down south in my state, which is might as well be Arkansas. That's how south it seems. And I was on a college campus, and I was doing a petition for free speech. And I handed the clipboard to a girl, and she looked at me dead in the face. And I was one of those people who said, nobody's actually super left. Come on, everybody's pretty reasonable. One of those people, because I hadn't met anybody that wasn't yet. And she looked at me and she said, no, thanks. And I explained, I was, well, this is what it is. And she looked at me and goes, I don't want to sign this stupid thing. I'm a communist. And I just stopped in my tracks, and I just looked at her and said, okay, have a nice day. But I was in shock because I had the college that I went to was obviously still had indoctrination, but the history of it was a Christian private college. So it wasn't quite as bad as like a state school or something like that. Yeah. And I just thought this was probably like 2015. And I thought, these people actually exist and they really think this way. And so then I started looking into things and understanding that people would probably start calling me a radical right-winger, even though at that time I didn't consider myself right-wing at all. And that was absolutely insane to me. So I started to realize just how bad things were getting when I don't know if I was just sheltered from it. I have no idea, but I just was waking up to this as, okay, this is actually a thing. People actually unironically believe this. This is insane.
Yeah, it's quite the rude awakening. I came to it in my early 30s, about 10 or 12 years ago, when I started to realize, this was in Obama's second term, I think. Yeah, early in Obama's second term, I started realizing that that most Americans weren't like the America that I knew growing up. Mm-hmm. They weren't like the small towns and the rural areas in Virginia and Tennessee and South Carolina and stuff. I started realizing that millions of Americans were illegal immigrants, were first-generation immigrants, were second-generation immigrants, and they were almost all with the radicalized, deracinated. Do you know that word deracinated is kind of an old-timey word?
No.
It means unrooted. It means without roots.
Oh,
That's what it means.
Mm-hmm.
It's and so many of the offspring of old American stock, meaning, good old white folks, Anglo-Saxons, whatever, like the core stock of America, a lot of their offspring are completely deracinated now too. They might as well be immigrants. And they are the ones that populate these massive metro areas. And it was literally like going to a different country the first time I went to a big city, which was Washington, D.C. Like, I'm from the South, and I've spent a lot of time in the Deep South. So seeing a bunch of black folks don't bother me. I like blacks just fine. But going to D.C., it was like a completely different kind of black folks there. They acted different. They talked different. They were like, they didn't seem at all like the black folks I knew from the South. And the white folks there were different too. Like they acted different. They didn't speak, in my opinion, like the America that I knew. And it was quite a big cultural shock moving from living in rural Appalachia and little small towns in the Deep South and, moving up for work, trying to get better education, trying to get better certification and work in big cities. It was like I was going to a different country with different people in it, how different it was. And have you ever visited a big city? Have you had that cultural shock experience yourself?
Yeah, I have an American experience and a non-American experience that really made me appreciate where I'm from. So my brother went to school in Chicago, and I'm near a city, but it's not a huge city. It's no New York or anything like that. I mean, Chicago's a lot smaller than New York, obviously, but he loved living there. He lived like about 20 minutes outside of downtown Chicago, and we'd go up and visit him every couple months. And we did the touring thing and went and saw a Navy Pier and all that and did that. And he goes, I just love living up here. And it's so funny. Now he's moving to Indiana. So there you go. Everybody goes back. But I said, I don't like to be here. It's too crowded. I've never been somebody that really likes crowds. At least not for long periods of time. And there was just something that I couldn't place that I just didn't like about it. And then I got married in 2019 and we went on a honeymoon to Tokyo. And
nice.
I love anime, all that. I wouldn't call myself a weeb, as they say, that's like obsessed with Japanese culture or anything. But I'm
not a weeb, but I like a lot of anime. Like,
exactly.
I think anime is really cool, especially like the golden age of like 95 to 2005. Yes. Like, that's really good stuff from there. Like, I love Standalone Complex. I love Bebop. I really like the second Vampire Hunter D movie. I like Trigun a lot. I like a lot of classic anime, but I wouldn't call myself a weeb because I'm not like, crazy about it, or like I don't have like, wall scrolls and body pillows and stuff. I'm not like that.
I didn't learn Japanese or anything before I went to Tokyo, so I'm not that level of obsessed, but when I came back, a lot of my followers were asking me, well, don't you want to live there? Isn't it so great? All this kind of stuff. And I go, no, I would hate to live there, I think. And they asked me why, and I couldn't really put my finger on it, but there really is something different. And I've been to Poland as well, and it was a lot more rural where I was in Poland. So it was a lot more.
I hear Poland's nice, but I've never been there. I've never been to anywhere in Europe. I'd like to one day, though.
It's beautiful. Poland is just, I could see myself living in rural Poland, but Tokyo, not so much. But
yeah,
I said, I don't know. I can't put my finger on why I don't like it. And I was talking to my husband about it, and he came to the same conclusion. And he said, I don't want to put this the wrong way and be like offensive to people that live there, but there was almost something like soulless about it. Like people just live in like these little tiny box apartments and nobody has a yard. Now we did go during the school year, but we didn't really see a lot of kids, which is a very weird experience for me. Everywhere I go here, there's kids laughing and running around and playing outside and all this. But I guess if you don't have
that's one of the things I noticed about big cities too, is there was a shocking lack of families and children everywhere I went. It was almost all adults that weren't really connected to each other, doing work, doing stuff like drinking or partying or going to whatever type of entertainment venues were around. And unless you went to specific residential areas or places that were for children, I didn't really witness any what I would consider real community, because real community to me, you got old people, regular adults, young adults, and children doing stuff together and sharing together. And in big cities, I never once saw that anywhere.
Yeah, it's spooky.
So it's like there was no older generation being connected to the young generation, teaching them and sharing with them and passing on to them what they valued. And out here in the rural areas where I live now, like that's like everybody's like that. Everybody's got kin and cousins and nephews and nieces and stuff.
Yeah, that's something that I think, I mean, actually, when I get off my stream here, I'm actually going to visit my grandparents. That's something that's been really hard for me over the past year and a half with everything that's been going on and forced upon us is it's like we were all forced, even in some places where you would think that, I mean, I'm lucky enough, I didn't live in a place with a mandate, but people that I personally know, even in my family, a lot of them were so terrified to have connection with other human beings. And it was very draining on me to not be able to go see my grandparents or my parents all the time or anything like that, my aunts, my uncles. It drains you. I've gone through like a really weird like sadness time almost, which I'm not that kind of person usually, but it was very hard. And I can't help but think that was on purpose. That was one of the goals, was to.
Oh, of course. I think that with break
it down to some extent.
Definitely, because with the pandemic, the scamdemic, whatever joke name you want to call it, I think that the goal of the global elite or oligarchs or whatever you want to call them, they wanted to make us afraid, make us willingly step into even more chains of bondage than we already were, and they wanted to destroy communities and small businesses because they know that that's one of the only holdouts left versus the technocratic megacorp control of everything. And I think that was a primary goal of this lockdown fiasco, was to not only see how far they could push us, but to break down the bonds of family and community and small businesses that they view as an impediment to what they want, which is all of us to be nationless, familyless wage slaves that are just numbers in the machine.
Eat bugs and live in pods. That's what they want.
Yep. So with that being said, let's move on to something else, if you don't mind. Let's talk about economics on a small scale. This is a good place to segue to that. When it comes to the parallelism, localism, the kind of thing that I think is vitally important, that I spend a lot of my time talking about. When it comes to you and what you do as like, you don't have to tell me specifically, but you have job skills like everybody. Do you see yourself trying to build or start some kind of parallel business, like an Etsy shop, or maybe being an educator of some kind, or a production manager or something of a small community? Is that something that you and your husband are working towards or have interest in doing where you live?
One thing I would absolutely love to do, and obviously this wouldn't be until I have children, but I have always, from the moment I have become a part of the liberty, whatever you want to call it, movement, community, whatever, I've been really passionate about education. And thankfully, one thing that my husband and I have agreed on for the years that we've known each other is the main way that children are taking out of this mindset of having a community and being able to think for themselves is going through the public school system, no matter where you are. If you go through it in the rural area, you're just as likely. I actually have a friend from Ohio, from the Appalachian area of Ohio, middle of nowhere, as most people would call it. And he went through public school, and he's in one of those places where he can step out of his house and just look at nature, and he still has a mindset a little bit that he can't get away from. And it's
definitely.
Very spooky. So
I think public education is purposefully set up to be statist indoctrination. I think that's the goal, and it has been since before you and I were born.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And so one of my goals, I would love, people talk about homeschooling and if you homeschool, your kids are going to be weird and there's not going to be a community. What people don't know is a lot of people that homeschool, the way they do it is they create a co-op of sorts, and all the parents chip in and all the kids get together, and that's how you do homeschool. And so I would absolutely love in my local community to start something from, obviously, where I'm going to come from, of ideas, to actually start a co-op for like-minded people that, even if they don't have to be ANCAPs. I know people think that's a little crazy, but even more conservative-minded people. I would love to start working with those kind of people who have kids around my kids' age when I get to that point, and actually start working on something like that so people don't feel, I think a lot of people were forced into homeschooling, which to me, I'm like, yay, everyone's homeschooling. But I think it also might put a negative opinion on these people because they feel like they're stuck in their houses with their kids staring at computers all by themselves. But I
Well,
also
just like
want
how
people,
everybody can have failings, that I'm sure there are
Right.
people that do homeschooling badly, just like people do
Oh,
anything
for sure.
badly. Like,
Yeah.
But in general, though, I think that a community and a family, or if you're religious, a church, I think people are better suited educating their own young than sending them off to state-funded quote unquote professionals, because we see
Absolutely.
the results of these horrible indoctrination centers. We see what kind of trash is pumped into children's minds.
Well,
And not just the anti-white stuff that I talk about, but from an economic side of things. When you go to a public school, they cripple you mentally. They don't teach you about economics. They don't teach you about how money exchange works. They don't teach you about how to avoid usury by these megacorps and big banks. They don't teach you about how to generate your own quote unquote worth, meaning your own revenue and contribution to create wealth. They don't teach you any of this. They teach you to do what you're told, to repeat back what is correct, to step through the next door. And they teach you to basically be a mix of a child and a slave to people that know these things I just talked about, and you're not allowed to know them. So economically, I think that our system cripples people as well, not just, racially and spiritually. I think it cripples them intellectually to not be able to function when it comes to one of the most important aspects of life, which is work and trade.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'm blessed. I was able to. I had a stay-at-home mom, but my mom was able to do so because she actually ran a daycare out of our house for 25 years.
Oh,
And so
cool. That's nice.
she was a small. I never thought about it when I was younger, but now that I'm older, I appreciate what she was doing. She was a small business of sorts. She did all her own taxes and everything, had everything lined up. And what's sad is she is someone who I've asked her, you were staying at home anyway, you ran your own business. Why didn't you homeschool my brother and I? And she looks at me and she says, oh, I'm not smart enough to do that. And I think that
That's
is
sad.
so
Well,
sad.
she probably is smart enough to do that.
Exactly. And there are people, I'm sure, all over America thinking, I really want to do this now that I've been doing it, but I don't think I'm intelligent enough. I don't think I have the skills. And I think that's partially because of this mindset that we've been brainwashed into, that we need to delegate that to someone that's not us, even when it comes to our own children, which is very scary to me.
You're right. That is absolutely an anti-Western, anti-white lie, and it's an endemic lie in white countries, because most other countries aren't like that. And I think that white countries need to have a sort of cultural revolution, so to speak, to realize that we don't need governments and states and so-called experts governing our lives and telling us what to do, because we shouldn't be slaves in our own country. We shouldn't be serfs on some global corporate plantation. And to me, the megacorps and the governments, they're all the same. They're all in bed together. Like Alphabet, Google might as well be a government for all I'm concerned.
Yeah, that's something I feel a lot of people in libertarian spaces need to get their minds wrapped around, is you can't say they're a private business forever, because at some point the line is very blurred and we need to be pointing it out, not just saying, well, technically they're a private business, because they all receive subsidies from government. They're all in bed with government.
Yeah, and on top of that, not only do they actively get government assistance now, most every single one of the megacorps now, all of them, going all the way back to Microsoft, all the way back to the 70s and 80s, the companies that became the megacorp globalist things that we have now, they have been supported by government every step of the way. And one of the frustrating things that I have with what you called lawbirds earlier, people that don't know a lot about what's going on, they don't function like a private business. All of these government regulations and government sanctions, that's not hurting Facebook. That's not hurting Microsoft. That's helping them by making the bar of entry to competition higher and higher with every regulation.
Absolutely.
So basically, all of these regulations, they're basically saying, unless you're a multi-million-dollar or multi-billion-dollar entity that gets federal stamps of approval, you can't even compete with things like Amazon, Walmart, Apple, Microsoft, Google, all of these things. Unless you have, people that are in the establishment checking the right boxes and pushing through the right paperwork with the governments, you don't even get a chance to compete let alone offer your product to others, because they'll never even know it exists. So that's one of the primary things that I want with localism and parallelism, is finding a way for good-minded people that have new ideas to reach others, to build a new market where the market that exists is dead if you want to try to build new tech, because you'll just hit a wall immediately, and you'll either get roughed up by hired goons or bought out, and there's no way forward in that system. That's why I like building away from that.
Exactly. And I mean, what people don't realize is, it's so funny that the joke that I always say to people, and that was said to me before I came to this realization that these things are not private, is for example, you'll talk about online censorship, and people will just tell you, oh, well, just make your own platform, just do this. And we see that these platforms are even being forced to censor people too when they don't want to. And people say, well, why don't you just build your own internet? Well, what people don't realize is, if you look up the history of how the internet, so to speak, came to be, I mean, my husband's father laid the lines with government contracts where I live.
Yep.
The government was directly involved in essentially the creation of the internet. So for libertarians or libertarians to sit here and say, well, it's private, blah, 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 it just tells me you don't know your history. You don't really understand what's really going on. And it's really sad. I feel like people really need to educate themselves on this. And like you said, get involved locally and try to find solutions to loopholes to get around these sorts of things, or at least to reach people in a different way.
Definitely. When it comes to education, do you know, he's in our live streaming cluster of folks. Do you know Radical Liberation, Radlib? You might even follow him on Twitter before you.
I do, yeah. Actually, I'm in a Telegram with Radlib.
Good.
Yeah.
I like Telegram too. You should link up with me on Telegram. I'll link up with you if you have a Telegram also. Radlib has 8 kids, and he and his wife homeschool all 8 kids. They have for many, many years. And they do a live stream series where it's a live stream series specifically for people like you who either don't have kids yet or have young kids, and they want to get involved and learn how to do homeschooling correctly and how to start homeschool groups in your community. So since you already know Radlib, you definitely should get involved with his live streams and at least remember them when it comes time for you to get involved with homeschooling. And there's also a guy that I know in the white positive community named Brant Danger, who has created a homeschool supplementary curriculum called the School of the West. And it's an additive curriculum that you put into whether you live in Australia or Finland or America or anywhere, that teaches the building blocks of European civilizations and speaks on it speaks to cultural history and knowing your people in a healthy, holistic way that will hopefully prevent our children from having weaponized white guilt, which is one of the primary tools that the establishment state and the anti-white agenda uses to subvert our children away from their future. So schoolofthewest.world, I'm pretty sure, is the URL. I'll send it to you privately as well.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
There are already dozens of contributors that make high-quality audio-video clips that give high-quality professional-grade synopses for high school level students about science and technology and things in a white positive lens, because so much of the curriculums now, even that are available for homeschooling, they have the globalist anti-white lies in them, like erasing the 10 most important contributors to telecommunications and putting in a random African and Indian person instead.
Yeah, and I rag on public school, but I never went to public school.
Good.
I was blessed enough to go to private school, but unfortunately, my husband went to private school as well. And in a lot of private schools, you have to be careful because that rhetoric is still, unfortunately, very present in a lot of private schools. That's why I'm so big on homeschooling, because in my view, the only way you're going to really ensure that your children are not going to be indoctrinated, even to a little bit of an extent. I didn't even really realize that I had an anti-white or maybe like a diversity prone, and I mean diversity in quotes, obviously.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Until I met my husband. We met in high school, and he went to high school in a predominantly black area. And he basically grew up being bullied because he was white and being told that you're evil. And he also went to private school. So he was attending a private Christian school where he was being told that he owed people reparations and he needed to feel bad because he was white and worship everybody that he thought he was just friends with. And thought they could just get along. And it's really crazy. I don't think people think about until they come into contact with somebody who really is kind of in tune to what's going on, that this it's everywhere. It's so prevalent.
Yeah, and one of the ways that people, even my age, I'm in my 40s, like people my age and younger, in pretty much all schools, even private schools like you talked about, we don't get taught why words like racism, why words like sexism exist and are used the way they are. All of those words have roots in Marxist destabilization tactics that come from as far back as 1908. And those words and how they're used were purposely put into our lexicon, into our language, just so the anti-whites that call themselves Marxist radicals or the anti-whites who call themselves feminists and all that, just so they'll have leverage to wrench people emotionally and mentally to get them to go a certain way. Like something I didn't learn until a couple years ago. Did you know that the words anti-white and anti-whiteism were in common use and in our dictionaries up until the 60s and 70s? And then the globalist anti-whites who took over book production and school books and stuff removed those words and put in words like sexism, anti-Semitism, and those words instead. And I found that to be very interesting. And this is something that I think children need to know, that all of these words that are used in the zeitgeist right now by the anti-Western agenda, we'll call it, those words are not natural and healthy. Those words exist to make you feel white guilt, to make you feel male guilt, to make you feel guilt in general about being a Westerner. And we need to, as parents and community leaders, we need to dispel those lies by teaching people what the words actually are, where they come from, and who wants to use them for what. And I think that's a big thing that the School of the West supplement does, is it has a white well-being section that talks about how certain words are used to instill white guilt and why you should be aware of them and why you should keep them from subverting you or making you hate your people, or especially yourself as a child.
Yeah, and I mean, it's really scary how much power words like racism, for example, or even we've seen in the past 5 or 6 years, just calling anyone a Nazi, even if they're not. I mean, I've been called a Nazi because I cosplay an anime character that's half Japanese, half German. And they knew that the character was half German, and so they said, oh, well, I bet you cosplay her because you're a Nazi. I mean, thinking that was going to get a rise out of me, and I just said, okay, I don't care. I've cosplayed anime characters with iron crosses on the costume. I'm obviously, I'm totally socialist, guys. you're not gonna get me on that. But for a lot of people, it's scary. Just calling them racist, throwing out these buzzwords scares them, unfortunately, and I kind of see why, into silence. And I think, like you said, learning where these terms actually, why they use the terms that they do, because that's another thing. People need to realize there was a whole movement in the libertarian part of the internet to stop saying capitalism and just only call it free markets. And I'm very against that, because it's capitalism. We need to be using capitalism. This is what it is. I'm not changing my language to cater to leftist people. I'm not doing it anymore. This is what the word is. I'm not giving in. If people think it has a negative connotation, explain to them why it doesn't. And if they won't believe you, you're probably not going to convince them anyway. And we've got to start doing triage and focus on people whose minds you can change as well. Don't be focusing on people who are way too far gone.
Right. I think that's one of the most valuable lessons I learned getting older is you only have so many hours in your life, and there are only so many people that you'll be able to talk to. And arguing with people who are, in my opinion, so far gone from reality, I feel like that unless there's a large audience of people that you can reach with your reason, your truth, and your emotional arguments, then it's not worth your time. And so going back many years ago now, I just completely disengaged and stopped arguing with LGBT activists, with the anti-white agenda, which I'm pretty much now the intersectional feminism crew from like 10 years ago. They're the ones that became the anti-white woke brigade, you know, all let's call everything white supremacy and do A, B, C, D, and E. I completely disassociated with arguing or trying to change anybody's mind who was involved in any of that. I just gave up on it. And now I focus on regular folks, people who are Americans that want to be American, that want a good way of life for them and their kids, that want healthy, that actually care about our Bill of Rights and care about the things that make life good. So that's who I spend my time on now. And my life is better because of it. And I feel like my time has more value because I'm actually, hopefully, making positive change instead of just flapping my gums against people who are going to hate me anyway.
Exactly. I mean, we had an experience, my husband and I, where we were hanging out with someone that we knew and had hung out with a few times, and we got to talking about BLM, which is very spicy, but spicy topic for them because we knew that they supported them, and that's fine. And we could tell that we were hitting a wall in the conversation. And at one point, one of the guys who happened to be, I think he's Iranian of descent, but he's American and he grew up here, and I think he's second generation, but he looked at my husband, who's white, and said, well, your skin is a privilege for life, so you'll never be able to understand. And my husband stopped him right there and said, excuse you? Do you realize what you just said to me? But it's those kind of people that you have to choose. Do you want to spend time with people that say things like that are never going to get it, that have been indoctrinated, or even worse, actually just sincerely came to that conclusion by themselves? Or do you want to spend time like I have networking online? I've gained a lot of female friends online, thankfully, that are more conservative minded, that I'm also talking into homeschooling, and they're really catching on and think it's a good idea because they're seeing, especially over the past year and a half, 2 years, what has been going on with all the totalitarian restrictions that have been put on us and exactly what they're trying to teach our kids. And you have to focus on people that you can actually get somewhere with. And I fell into the trap online of arguing with a bunch of people that are never going to agree with me, but you can't do that. You got to reach people where you can actually reach them and actually get them to change their minds on things.
Absolutely. I think that's a beautiful place to wind down our conversation today. I would like to have another conversation with you in the future at some point. Could pick up our conversation where we left off, learn how each other have changed, share new things that we've discovered together. In the last part of the show today, let's talk about you and what you have on the horizon for the immediate future. Do you have any new projects, any new cosplay conventions, anything that you're going to be involved in that you want the viewers here to know about?
Sure. Unfortunately, conventions aren't they either aren't happening, or if they are happening, they want me to cover my face, which on principle, I will not do.
Yeah. But, I'm going to share your link in the chat again for everybody.
Sure. So, yeah. So actually on my website, my newest big project, aside from my YouTube channel, which you can find all my links on the website that from the clip that you showed at the beginning of the show. But
okay.
My new project is I'm going to start blogging, which is really weird for me, but I'm a person, I prefer to live stream instead of make content videos, to just because I like to chat with people just like we're doing right now. But
I also prefer that. That's more fun for me. I enjoy that too.
Yeah, I have a lot more fun interacting with people instead of I just feel like I'm still not someone that's comfortable just talking at people. So
yeah,
maybe I'll get used to it. But now that I don't have a job, I'm going to be focused on full-time content creation. So at the end of this month, my plan is to start live streaming twice a week. I don't know the days yet, but I'll be announcing that on my channel in a video, hopefully here soon, and actually start producing book review content. I'm actually going to start. I did a live stream reading out loud Anatomy of the State by Murray Rothbard, and I'm going to do a pretty spicy one soon. I'm going to be reading Getting Libertarianism Right out loud by Hans Hermann Hoppe. So that's
yes, Hoppe is my favorite. Hoppe is by far my favorite ANCAP dude to listen to. I love what he has to say. I like his the spicy way he says things about certain topics like demographics and things like that. I love what he has to say.
I love him because he is someone who clearly, he does not care what people are going to perceive him as. He just says the truth as it is. And I really, really appreciate that about him. So,
I like that too, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll be producing a lot more video content on my channel, hopefully here towards the end of May. So, but all my links are on my website if anyone's interested of where they can find me, of course.
All right, sounds good. Well, before we get out of here today, is there any particular questions you had for me or anything I talked about today? Anything you want to know about me before we get out of here?
I was interested. Do you have a Discord or a Telegram? I'm sure your followers know this, that I can contact you and get in your community at least.
I am on a lot of lists when it comes to social media because I have been a truth teller for a very long time. So I have already lost 5 Discord accounts and 2 Discord servers. So I am not, I gave up on trying to have my own Discord community. I have a Discord that you talked to me on earlier today.
Yeah.
And I have a decaying Discord server that the previous 2 accounts of mine have already been yeeted. So I have no control over it, but there's still a handful of people in there. I will not be making a new Discord server. Yeah. I will, however, invite you to the 2 Discord server communities that have a lot of people like us in them, and we can socialize there. And I will give you privately the link to my private Telegram as well as my public Telegram, so you can have those, and we'll connect on Telegram as well. Any other questions you have for me today, Mack?
I do not. Thanks so much for having me on.
Well, I had a wonderful time with you. Hopefully the viewers did as well. And before we get out of here, we're going to check Entropy, PayPal, Cash App, etc., to see if we've got any financial gifts or questions from the community. Since this is not live streaming to YouTube, we probably won't have any because that's just how it goes. It seems that 90% of people that watch me only do it on YouTube, no matter how much I ask them not to do that. But let's refresh. Okay, nothing on Cash App, and no financial gifts over on Entropy, and nothing over on PayPal except for a big one for Monday night, which I won't declare yet. And we have a couple of people saying stuff over on D Live. Hello, D Live crew. Good to see. We've got Swick here today. We've got, I'm not going to say that name, but hello. It starts with Fook. I'll just say that. Thank you guys for being here today. Swick says that it won't work unless Christian teachings are involved in the process. And I have a lot of Christian followers. Technically, I suppose I'm an atheist because I can't feel faith, but I've become Team Christian in the last decade or so because I see the value of having some kind of strong moral, religious, spiritual structure to things. And so I go to church, I participate in Christianity, I started reading the Bible again, that kind of thing. And I think we do need something like that. And Christianity is good. It's where our values come from. It's where all of the great ideas for morality came from of the modern era. So I do like Christianity, and I agree with Swick that for now, definitely, Christianity is a good source for morality and giving people purpose, I think. Well, what do you think about that?
Well, Swick will be happy to hear. I don't know how I didn't mention this, but I am Christian. I've been Christian. That's why I went to private school. I've grown up.
Fantastic. You did mention it was a Christian school.
And actually my brother's becoming a pastor. So we've got it in our family. That's a solid foundation here. So yeah, I completely agree.
Well, I think that if you can get the anti-whiteism and the anti-Western globalist lies out of your church, I think that Christianity is a wonderful way to structure a community, to have good family values, to have not just community connections, but real community value of people that believe in the same good things together. I think it's excellent. So I see nothing wrong at all with basing everything that we do around a Christian community. So with that being said, that's the only real question or quandary that we had from the chat today. Thank you, chat, for being here with us today. And of course, a big thank you to Mack. Mack, I look forward to having you on Discordant Dragons here in a few weeks. I think that's 2 Mondays from now. Hopefully that will still be the case. And we will definitely do a one-on-one conversation again at some point in the future. And of course, if there's any collaborations or live streams you want to invite me onto, feel free to ask, and I'll gladly do them with you as well. So with that being said, any final words you have for today?
I do not. Just thanks so much for having me on, and I can't wait to talk again soon and be a guest with your audience again soon.
Sounds good, and I'm sure they'll look forward to hearing more about you next time. So that being said, everyone have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you guys all Monday night for the next Discordant Dragons with the Prudentialist, Don the Pleb, and DC Perspective. Have a good weekend, everybody. God bless.